Please be seated. This court is now in session. The Honorable Benjamin Lyon presiding. We will now hear the case of Rex versus Wems. Prisoners, hold up your hands. Gentlemen of the jury, look upon the prisoners and hearken to the charges that William Wems, James Hettenden, William McCauley, Hugh White, Matthew Kilroy, William Warren, John Carl, Hugh Montgomery did on the 5th of March 1770 at Boston, with force and arms, feloniously and willfully assaulted and murdered Patrick Carr, Samuel Gray, Crispus Atticus, James Cadwell, and Samuel Maverick, all residents of the town of Boston, and at the time being in peace of God and our Lord the King. This indictment, the defendants at the bar plead not guilty, and for trial place themselves upon God and their country. Your charge, therefore, is to inquire whether they, or either of them, be guilty of felony and murder, wherefore they stand indicated, or not guilty. Good men and true, stand together and hearken to your evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Winthrop. Before us today, arguing on behalf of the prosecution and the Crown, is Mr. Robert Treat Payne, and for the defense, we recognize Mr. John Adams. Gentlemen, we are now ready to hear the opening statements. Will the lawyer for the Crown please begin?
Your Honor, gentlemen of the jury, the prisoners at the bar are a party of soldiers belonging to His Majesty's 29th Regiment of Foot, who on the evening of March 5th last were induced by some cause or another to fire on the inhabitants of this town in King Street. They are charged with willful and premeditated murder of the 5 individuals aforementioned. In support of this accusation against these prisoners, I intend to ascertain the following things: the identity of the persons charged with the fact of the killing and the circumstances attending and aggravating that fact. To this end, I shall immediately produce to you such evidence from the testimony of credible witnesses.
The prisoners at the bar stand indicted for the murder of 5 of His Majesty's subjects, as set forth in the several indictments which have been read. To these indictments, the prisoners have pleaded not guilty, and by this plea, throw their burden of proof upon the Crown. Now, there are several definitions for you to bear in mind during this trial. I will read to you from Blackstone's Commentaries on English Law. Homicide in self-defense upon a sudden affray is excusable by English law. The self-defense is that whereby a man may protect himself from a battery or the like in the course of a sudden brawl or quarrel by killing him.
Would you kindly tell this court where you were on the night of March 5th of 1770?
I was on King Street on the night of March 5th.
Did you see any of the soldiers?
Yes, I saw several soldiers. One of them was Hugh Montgomery. I saw him fire the first shot.
Indeed, you saw him fire the first shot. Would you say that at that time that Hugh Montgomery was in control of his musket when he fired that shot?
Yes, he was in control of his gun.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Adams, would you possibly examine this witness?
I would, Your Honor. Mr. Bailey, did you see anything thrown at the soldiers before Private Montgomery fired his weapon?
Yeah, the townspeople were throwing things at the soldiers.
What things?
They were throwing ice at the soldiers.
Ice. Ice. People were throwing ice at the soldiers. Could you describe the ice that was thrown, Mr. Bailey?
Ice was in pretty good pieces. And, you know, it could have hurt somebody.
As large as a person's fist, shall we say?
Pretty big.
Will you tell us what happened right before Private Montgomery fired his weapon?
Well, it looked like he was hit by something. It was something thrown by someone in the crowd. I couldn't really see what it was, but it It could have been a large chunk of ice.
So it is your testimony that prior to Private Montgomery firing his musket, he was struck by something. Thank you, sir. No more questions.
Of the crowd, it is my province to support the charge against these prisoners. I shall rest the case as it is, and doubt not but on the evidence as it now stands. The facts, as far as we have gone, against these prisoners are fully proved, and until something turns up to remove from your minds the force of that evidence, you must find these soldiers guilty. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Mr. Adams, please take your closing statements.
Your Honor. Gentlemen of the jury again, thank you for your kind attentions. When the multitude was shouting, the bells ringing, the mob whistle screaming and rending like an Indian yell, the people from all quarters throwing every species of rubbish they could pick up in the street, and some throwing ice and clubs at the soldiers, what could the soldiers do? Do you expect they should behave like Stoic philosophers, lost in apathy? It is impossible you should find any of them guilty of murder. You must suppose them divested of human passions if you don't think them at least provoked at threat of their lives by such treatment. There are many witnesses who swear to circumstances in favor of the prisoners, witnesses who swear positively that there were numerous persons with clubs surrounding the party, numerous persons who were by much an overmatch for 8 soldiers. It was in the power of the mob to kill the whole of the party. What should 8 soldiers expect from such a set of people? Would it have been a prudent resolution in them, or in anybody in their situation, to have stood still, to see if the mob would knock their brains out? Had they not all the reason in the world to think that, as the mob had done so much already, they would proceed farther? I have read to you the definition of justifiable homicide and battery. You bring those definitions to mind again. I will enlarge no more on the evidence, but submit it to you. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. Nor is the law less stable than the fact. If an assault was made to endanger their lives, the law is clear. They had a right to kill in their own defense. To your candor and justice, I submit the prisoners and their cause.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Gentlemen, you've now heard all the evidence and arguments for both the defense and the prosecution. You will weigh all of this in regard to the law. Keep in mind that you may find some of the defendants guilty while finding others not guilty. You may also find them guilty whether of murder or manslaughter. If upon the whole you are in any reasonable doubt of their guilt, you must then, agreeable to the rule of law, declare them innocent. Please deliberate and inform the clerk when you have reached a verdict. Deliberate.
Reach the verdict, Your Honor.
Jerry Gorman, please
From the
stand.
Southport part of Boston.
In the case of William Wems, how do you find the defendant?
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
In the case of James Hardigan, how do you find the defendant?
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
In the case of William McCulley, how do you find the defendant?
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
In the case of Hugh White, how do you find the defendant?
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
In the case of Matthew Kilroy, how do you find the defendant?
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of manslaughter.
In the case of William Warren, how do you find the defendant?
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
In the case of John Carroll, how do you find the defendant?
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
In the case of Hugh Montgomery, how do you find the defendant?
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of manslaughter.
William Wells, James Hardigan, William McCulley, William Warren, John Carroll, Hugh White, this court has found you not guilty. You are free to go.
Report to your officer.
Matthew Kilroy and Hugh Montgomery, this court has found you guilty of the crime of manslaughter. In 1770, the penalty for manslaughter was the same as the penalty for murder, and the penalty is death. Matthew Kilroy and Hugh Montgomery, you are hereby sentenced to death.
Your Honor, privilegium clericale, according to Statute 18 of Elizabeth, that by burning or pardon he is discharged forever of that of all other felonies committed within the benefit of clergy, that by burning or pardon of it he is restored to all capacities and credits and the possession of his lands or otherwise.
Allow me to translate. The benefit of the clergy, which is the common name for the law he's referring to, is basically a law that allowed a lesser sentence on the first offense. Back in medieval times, this was extended only to members of the clergy, but it was later extended to anyone who could prove that they could read. Now, to prove that you could read, traditionally, there was a specific verse in the Bible, Psalm 51, often called the neck psalm, because it could save one's neck. Gentlemen, I have good news. So come forward, and we will have you read the 51st Psalm. Matthew Kilroy and Hugh Montgomery, please approach the bench. And I'm going one at a time now. I'm going to have you read starting from the big H right there. Read it nice and loud.
Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness. Wait, are we supposed to read?
Go.
The rest of the book.
Blot out my transgression.
All right, thank you. That's enough. The same passage starting from the H.
Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness, according unto the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgression.
All right, thank you. So you seem to be mostly literate. Gentlemen, I have good news and bad news. First, the good news. You have both demonstrated that you are literate. You will both be granted the benefit of the clergy and will not be executed for your crimes. Now for the bad news. You will be branded on your thumb with the letter M for manslaughter. That means that they will heat up a piece of metal shaped like the letter M until it is hot enough to burn that scar into your skin forever. Then, if you're ever brought before this or any other court on any other charge, we will not be so lenient. All right. Hold out your hand, Hugh Montgomery.
Be brave.
Be brave, and feel free to cry out. Matthew Kilroy, Scout Fellow, stand by.